I wonder, what do you guys think the layout of the new expansion is going to be? So, for example, here is how Dragonflight was, the expansion release, right? Dragonflight was X-Pack launch, right? X-Patch launch week, and then it was like second week, and then it was new season, Mythic Plus, fully uncapped, Mythic Raid, everything. That's what Dragonflight was. This was Dragonflight. Okay. So wasn't Mythic the third week in Dragonflight? In Dragonflight, it was week 1, week 2, Mythic. It was 2 weeks, and then the season started in Dragonflight. I looked it up before the stream. So like, what will the War Within be? Okay, War Within out. Okay, you guys don't want to do this in Paint? Fine. Let's do it in Notepad. Let's do it in Notepad so it's not as bright while we have Dorky in the background wiping. So Dragonflight launch week 1, week 2, season 1 start. Okay, well, I guess instead of season 1 start, let's just say what came out this week. So 3. Okay, let's actually do it like this. Week 1 is nothing, and then week 3, what got added week? I guess what content could you do? So it was like Mythic 0. This week it was Mythic 0, and this week it was Mythic Plus, in parentheses, uncapped. Gotta start at -3 days. I don't think that's relevant at all. Like, first of all, Dragonflight didn't have that, and even if the War Within has that, that's just going to be 3 extra days added onto week 1. There's going to be no reset stuff involved with it whatsoever. I don't think it's not even worth posting. Right, Mythic Plus uncapped, Mythic Raid is what came out week 3. All right, so the War Within launch. Again, early access. I mean, let's just post it just so people stop typing about it, but completely irrelevant for what I'm actually trying to portray here. So early access plus early access plus week 1. This looks so stupid now, but okay. Week 2, week 3. All right. It's week 0. It's not week 0. I'm just going to say week 1. There's no reason to even post early access. There's early access is just 3 extra days to level before week 1, but it changes literally nothing about what we're going to talk about. All right. Week 1, I believe, will not have Mythic Zeros, right? It'll just be Heroic. A change they made in Season 4, as you all know. Old Mythic Zeros are now Heroics. It's the same thing as it used to be. You can literally just queue for them. That's it. No difference whatsoever. They are just able to be queued for. And it gives the same rewards as old Mythic Zero gave. They're not going to have new Mythic Zero in week 1 or 2, which would be funny if they do. I don't know that, by the way, but it would be funny if they did do that. Because it would be people, the amount of complaining that would happen, because Mythic Zeros are now what Mythic Plus 10s used to be. So could you imagine if the only content you could do in the game was Mythic Zeros in week 1 with like leveling gear and rare farmed gear? You would get absolutely slaughtered, and people would complain about the game being made for the 1% and shit. It would be so fucking funny. But okay, so week 2. Now this is where it gets interesting. I think there's 2 options. I think there's 2 options for how the War Within launch will go. Let's actually just say option A. Week 1 is just Heroic Dungeons. Week 2 is Heroic Dungeons plus only Heroic Raid. And week 3 is same thing as before. Mythic Plus, Uncapped, and Mythic Raid. So it's the exact same thing as what Dragonflight launch was, except you just, in the second week, you also can do normal and Heroic of the Raid. That way, 2 weeks into it, you can do all the Mythic Plus you'd want to do in the world, just like last expansion, and nothing's changing for you in that way. You're not being delayed by a week. That's what I think option A is. I think option B is kind of similar, except no Heroic Raid week 2. It's just week 2 Heroic Dungeons, and then it's week 3 Mythic Plus Uncapped, but it's just Heroic Raid. And then week 4 would be Mythic. This is an insane week if they do this. Interesting, to say the least. And then I guess we have some other options. We have like option C, which I think is like extremely unlikely, which is these 2 things, which is Heroic Dungeons, and then it's week 3. Let me scroll down here. I guess once I make more lines, it will let me do that. Week 3 is Heroic plus Mythic Zero only. And then week 4 is Mythic Plus, Uncapped, and Mythic Raid. Oh, week 3 is Heroic Raid plus Mythic Zero. Week 4 is Uncapped Mythic Plus Mythic Raid. I guess I should actually swap these around so it's easier to read. What is it? That would be horrible. Yeah. And then option D, I guess, is, if there's another option, is like all the possibilities, right? We have week 1 Heroic Dungeons, and then you just move this up a week. and then you move this up a week. Which one do you guys think is the most likely out of these? D seems the best. Oh, no. I'm not talking about what you think is the best. I'm saying what you think Blizzard is likely to do. I'm not asking for you what you hopefully would want. I'm saying what Blizzard is likely to do. So option C is what happened the last time Heroic Weeks existed, right? So C is what happened in Shadowlands. The last time there was Heroic Weeks before Mythic came out. But when they did Dragonflight, it seemed pretty obvious that you could still have the Heroic Week. There's just no reason to actually cap Mythic Plus. Max, I think the Delves will be uncapped week 1. I'm not interested in really or understand Delves, so I just kind of left that out of this. But Delves could be involved in any or all of this, I guess. I have no idea. What is it? C is slightly better because Mythic Plus is capped at +6, right? So how Mythic Plus capping used to work is you only got gear from, I think, +6 or +7 in Mythic Plus, but new Mythic Plus system has Mythic 0 as an old 10. So I don't think there's ever going to be any like weird capping in Mythic Plus. I think it is purely going to be whether you can just do Mythic Zeros or whether you're able to do Mythic Plus at all. I just think this old weird restriction cap thing is just going to be always going to just be Mythic 0 or Mythic Plus. Which is also easier to understand too. What are Heroics equivalent to now? Okay, old, new. Old Mythic 0 is now Heroic. Old Mythic +10 is now Mythic 0. I think, right? Is it any more complicated than that? What's old Heroic? Oh, I guess old Heroic would be new normal, I guess? Or is there any changes there? Or is old Heroic just dead? I mean, if old Heroic is dead, then I think that's fine because there was literally no fucking point to do old Heroics. It was like some weird antiquated thing that used to be in the game and they didn't update it. This new version is much better, but is this just a straight difficulty increase across the board? No. This includes rewards. So what Mythic 0 rewards used to be are Heroic. So like if you remember doing Mythic Zeros at the beginning of last expansion, that process will be exactly the same, except you can queue for it in the group finder instead of having to make a group in the group. That's the only difference. Gives you the same loot, everything. Mythic 0 plus Heroic Raid wouldn't make sense in the same week then, right? Upgrade tracks would be way off. Well, I mean, yeah, upgrade tracks are interesting. So what upgrade track does Mythic 0 give you? Like here was last tier. It was this season 3, right? So a Mythic +10 would give you Champion 1 out of 8. So are we to assume that Mythic Zeros in the new expansion are going to give Champ track? And then, yeah, Hero and Vault. Okay. Which one of these do I hope it is? Well, I mean, I kind of feel like Blizzard is unlikely to do option A, now that I'm thinking about it, and option D, because I think Blizzard is married to the idea where, like, there's really no actual content for the first 2 weeks because they want to give time for people to level and, like, experience the new expansion, maybe do some delves and shit. Like, I don't think they want to rush you into, like, technically season 1 in right away. Like, I think there's, like, actually zero chance it's D. Anything that just has one patch week is great, but doubt it procs. I think there's no fucking way they'll do that. I think there's going to be a 2-week buffer either way, right? So I think it's going to be option B or C. I kind of hope it's option B. That week will be fucking insane if it's option B. Like, well, option B has a lot of benefits for Race to World First guilds randomly. It's going to be an insane week as far as time commitment, but it does have the side benefit of allowing you to have less characters on your roster. Like, realistically, how many characters you could have ready for week 2, meaning you have fully grinded Mythic Plus on them and are ready to make your choice based on your vault or whatever, or maybe you got lucky enough in Heroic Week the first week to not have to multiple characters. Like, the Race to World First is weird. You always convince yourself that, like, you still do more characters just to, like, do as much as you can to compete, which is, like, a weird mindset. Well, not a weird mindset. It makes sense. But, like, if you look at it logically, there's all the more reason to not have. Like, for example, I talked to Ben last night because we think you can be able to do next tier with... You can definitely have... Like, if you wanted to have players that wanted to have a less amount of players and it's the only way they would raid, you could absolutely get away with that. And then, obviously, that's the best thing to do for your guild if it gives you a better chance of winning. Winning's the only thing that matters. I'll give you an exact quote from Ben. How many characters am I looking at right now? So Bubba's a better answer, but... last year we were able to get away with Evade having 2 and some people having 4 if they're a prio. And then Bubba said, yeah, gearing should be easier, blah, blah. And then Ben said, if I can only make X amount of characters, I'm logging the fuck in. Exact quote, right? So if you can get some of your best players to play that were previously and totally understandably were pushed away by the fact that you had to have 12 characters, Heroic Week existing is a great way to get people that hated that part of the race back in, which already seems to be the case. The problem is back, yeah. So I'm thinking it's B. B is what I hope it is. C is going to make Mythic Plus players really mad. Because they're like, hey, last expansion during week 3, we could just start doing Mythic Plus. But now this expansion, we have Mythic Plus an entire week later. And I would fully understand that complaint. C is the classic Blizzard choice. Yeah, I mean, the thing that I have convinced myself in my head that is going to work is like the 2 weeks of like basically nothing in the game, which we've had for a very long time now, is going to still exist. If there's any copium to A or D being an option, it's that the 3-day early access, which, you know, love it or hate it, I fucking hate that that's a thing. Most people are probably going to do that, and well, I don't know about most people, but a large amount of people are going to do that, especially people who care about getting into this content as soon as possible, and they will be more ready for that like second week than you would have normally. So I don't know. I'm still thinking it's B or C. I think it's really interesting which one it is. The difference in levels of hell that we will be going through if it's option B versus option C. Option C is a fucking huge vibe. And option B is like every single minute that you could possibly spend in Heroic Week doing something is worth an extreme amount of value. Like, I'm pretty sure if option B is what this is, I don't think what we normally do is we fly out our players to the race like 4 days before the race starts. We wouldn't be able to fly people in that week. We would have to be there before week 3 even started, which wouldn't be a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with that. Unless it's Sepulcher. The only time we ever flew in our entire raid before Heroic Week started happened to be Sepulcher, which was like the longest race of all time, and that ended up being a massive negative near the end of the race, having our players on site at such a terrible location for that long. So like, as long as the first raid isn't as long as Sepulcher, which has only ever happened once, then bringing in our players an entire week earlier shouldn't be a huge problem. But I'm serious. I don't think you can fly players to your raid during this week. That usually we have European players. That's an entire lost day of farming. And I don't think you can do that.